Good evening. Welcome to the Southern Ballers Football and Conversation. My name is on YouTube, of course, Jared Old Evan Green, with my partner, my friend, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the mighty LDBC. I hope everybody's having a blessed day. Coach, how you doing? How you feeling?
I'm blessed and highly favored, bro.
Same here. Can't complain at all. Can't complain. Uh, like always, if you're just tuning in, please like and subscribe and share. We always talk about HBCU football first, maybe a little bit of the NFL, and then, of course, we're going to go into the topic of the show. So, first off, I want to start with the scores that happened this past weekend in this past football action in the HBCU. North Carolina Central beat Morgan State 59-20. North Carolina A&T put Edward Waters in their place, which is Division II school, 45-7. South Carolina State beat Virginia University of Lynchburg 36-0. Delaware State beat Norfolk State 28-7. Alabama State beat those Delta Devils 24-9. Grambling falls to Florida A&M Rattlers 2016. Hampton beats Albany in a thriller 38-37 in overtime. Ivy League school beats Howard 41-25. Harvard beats Howard 41-25. Jackson State basically blows out Bethune-Cookman 48-8. And coaches Southern Jaguars outlast Alcorn State 21-17. And Tennessee State beats their rival Tennessee Tech 30-14. And Alabama A&M in a good game beats Arkansas Pine Bluff 34-31. Great games, great games. Let me go. I'm missing some scores. No, I'm not. But anyway, those are the scores for that happened as far as the HBCU schools. Not all of them, but definitely the Division I FCS schools. What you think about that, Coach?
It was a good weekend of football across the board. Especially when it came to HBCU football, I was able to see some of the Grambling and Florida A&M game. Then it got to a point where the Tennessee Alabama game got so good, I couldn't turn back to Grambling and FAMU because that game was real good. So, and then by that point, I think the score was tied. Then my mom and I left because we wanted to be at A.W. Mumford Stadium, P. Richardson Field before kickoff, and we just got there right at kickoff. That's why I was saying it. I tell my mom all the time, if Senior was alive, there's no way we would cut it that close. We probably would have been, at the Phil G. Clark Activity Center probably since maybe about probably before noon, like tailgating and cooking, barbecuing, whatever, So
Awesome. Okay. What did you think about the newcomer wide receiver that balled out for y'all, August Petrie?
Oh, I'm not gonna lie, he was a real threat. In terms of him, he played well. He played exceptionally well. He did well. Carl Lockett, really, the two of them really were like my two MVPs of the game. Because in the passing game, how to give Bashawn credit. I'll probably say for the exception of maybe Quincy Richard's jump, where he struggled like his sophomore year and most of his junior year, and then he balled out in the classic, and then his senior he was phenomenal. I haven't seen a Southern quarterback make this much of a turnaround in like a short time frame. I think he still has trouble going all the way through his entire progression, but he seems like he's reading much better. He's making quicker decisions, and Petrie was his guy. Because Southern got the ball to start the game. That decent kick return, and then right out the gate he went right to Petrie, a long pass. Then after that, another long pass. Before you know it, Southern scored a touchdown. And I mean, they jumped out on Alcorn early. Then a nice, comfortable lead. Uh, in terms of after that point, they relied a lot on Carl Ligon because I thought sure it was going to be either Gerard Sims or Kendrick Grimes, but it goes to show you that they have a three-headed monster at running back. Excuse me. And Carl Ligon, he kind of reminds me, just like Kendrick Grimes reminds me of a Cedric Holmes or Ryan Lewis. Carl Ligon is like, that guy also. He's kind of like the small, shifty, elusive running back that get out in space and
Right.
run away from people. So, he was the bell cow. Sims got some carries and Ryan's got some carries, but Carl Lockett was like the bell cow of the three running backs. And, that pretty much was the first half. Then the second half, Alcorn pretty much gave time of possession, held the ball a lot. And Southern was just able to hold them off at the end. And in terms of the atmosphere at A.W. Mumford Stadium and P. Richardson Field, this was the most people they had at any game throughout the course of the season. The atmosphere, it was an uptick in terms of, because if you look at the Florida Memorial game and the UAPB game, there wasn't hardly that many people. Just like usual, they had more people tailgating out in the parking lot than they had in the actual stadium. But I didn't realize, just looking at some of my current and former coworkers, that Alcorn, I mean, even though I know Baton Rouge is SWAC country, because you have a lot of people outside of Southern and LSU, a lot of people went to Grambling, Jackson State, Alcorn State, but it seems as if there's like a pipeline from like Natchez to Baton Rouge, because one of my former coworkers, she's from Natchez and she lives in Baton Rouge, and then they had like a whole row of people behind me that's from Natchez that lives in Baton Rouge. So I guess there's a pipeline from Natchez to Baton Rouge. And the guy he's teaching was telling me he's been living in Baton Rouge for like 20 years. And, it's close enough to Natchez. If something happens, he can go back home. But yeah, it's far enough away just to be away. So I guess that's kind of like the perfect situation for a lot of people that live in that area. So I think that had a lot to do with, the fanfare. And of course, Alcorn also brought their band, which is always something, that's, much appreciated when you go to these SWAC games. Just say you play against a team like UAPB and they don't bring their band and it's a bad game. It's like, some fans is really into the fanfare and the festivities and the bands when it comes to HBCU games. Really not as appealing for those type of games. So the atmosphere was electric. Of course, it wasn't like, in the mid to late 90s where Southern was at their heyday. But nevertheless, it still was a good atmosphere. It was a heck of a game. And I'm going to be honest with you, Southern survived to be more than they won because Alcorn outplayed them in that second half.
Yes, they did, but Southern held on to win.
Right.
Uh, of course, Jackson State basically um, son Bethune Cookman. I mean, the one of the best games I seen was that Florida A&M Grambling State game. I mean, of course, I didn't see the Hampton and Albany game that went in overtime, but that Florida A&M and Grambling State game, it was pretty good. Uh, uh, what's the quarterback name? Musa.
Yeah.
He did pretty good. Um, unfortunately, Hugh Jackson over there is still trying to get his first win. Um, why do you think Grambling is struggling? Is it you think is it because they're still trying to find their identity with a new coach?
Yeah, I mean, see, college, dynamics of college and the NFL is different. You
Right.
know, when you're a new head coach in college, until you get you like a full recruiting class of like 3 years worth of players, you're not really going to be able to put your imprint on that particular team or your identity. And I think that's one of the things that I find impressive with Richardson. Even though he got a lot of cast off, a lot of guys transferred from, people talk about how players transfer to Power Five schools in this day and age with to Coach Prime at the Texas State. People don't realize, like in the early mid-90s, Pete Richardson had a lot of players transfer from LSU and from other like Power Five schools in general. Primarily LSU, but other schools in general. So unless you get those kind of, he had those kind of players. Even with that being said, most of those players that played for Pete Richardson were Gerald Kimball players, and the fact that his first year at Southern, he won a Black National Championship and a SWAC championship all in 1 year. It was pretty impressive. So most coaches, it's going to take them that cycle of getting your full recruiting class of players to come in. So, the fact that people saying that he's not doing a good job, to me, it's too early to tell. If he's struggling the
I
same way
agree.
in a couple of years, then something else needs to be said. But at this point now, it's too early to tell. And you got to realize every coach, even if they play in the NFL or coach in the NFL, Deion Sanders has a different aura and presence around him. He's charismatic. He's well spoken. He brings a life and energy into a room. So even if Southern would have got someone like Marshall Falk, Ray Lewis, any of these coaches, any of these players like Ed Reed that wanted to supposedly come to Southern, I'm not, I'm not gonna say they would have had the same impact that Deion Sanders has because he's like a once in a lifetime type of coach. So even if you would have brought in a Ray Lewis or Ed Reed or Marshall Falk, who's to say it was gonna have the same impact? So
I definitely agree about Ed Reed going to Southern or Louisiana school because he's from Rose, Louisiana. So I can definitely see that fit.
well, I can see it, but I'm saying the point I'm trying to make is who's to say he would have had the same impact as Coach Prime because Coach Prime,
Exactly.
he has charisma, he has personality, he's well spoken. He could walk it, he could talk it also. He talks a real good game. So those intangibles and those variables, they kind of play into him being like once of a lifetime type of coach. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
that's
Right.
why he could get these type of recruits to come to his school. Whereas if you look at Pete Richardson, even though he didn't have all of those things surrounding him, he was getting Power Five players to transfer from LSU. Like some of Southern best players in the '90s came from LSU, like Michael Hayes. Michael Hayes, he was a beast at Southern. And don't get me wrong, I know they had players like Michael Clayton and Josh Reed, but there's no way you can't tell me you got a guy that's 6'5", that's 210, that has a basketball background, and that could just high point the ball at any time. That you could use somebody like that. I mean, I know he might have got Jared Denardo's doghouse, but from what I'm understanding, he had to get in trouble for him to transfer to Southern like that. And for him to have all the success he had at Southern, that's what I'm saying. A lot of those guys that went, that, transferred to Southern, you know, Pete Richardson, he just benefited from it. So the kind of things that Coach Prime is doing now, Pete Richardson did this in the mid-90s. He was getting a lot of players.
Right. Right. So um, it's funny to me that Coach Prime gets so much flack about him getting all this talent, and of course because he bringing in his uh, NFL Hall of Fame prestige. But my thing is, like you just use the example of Coach Richardson back in the day at Southern. Those old SWAT coaches been doing this.
And that's the thing people don't understand, bro. Like, I don't, you could be the greatest coach ever. If you don't have talent, it means nothing. So even with like we talk about the whole issue between Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. and Coach Prime.
Right.
Coach Eddie Robinson Sr., look at all the players he put in the NFL. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of his success came like pre-integration, but even with that being said, like if you look at all the players that he put in the NFL, he had talent also. So no great coach is going to be great without having great talent. Now, don't get me wrong. Certain coaches could inspire and motivate players better. Certain coaches could groom and develop talent better. That's one of the things about somebody like Nick Saban. I think he does a good job at grooming and developing talent. And like we was talking about in terms of game management and clock management, even though I was at A&W Mumford Stadium when the end of that Alabama-Tennessee game transpired, going back and looking at it, from a clock management standpoint, there's no way he should have gave Tennessee enough time to go downfield and kick a field goal and win a game. Had he managed the clock better, it probably just at best would have been an overtime game. But that goes to show you, if he's arguably the greatest college coach of all time, all coaches have these shortcomings and deficiencies. Because from a clock management standpoint, there's no way he should allow Tennessee to go down the field and kick a field goal and win the game. Once Alabama missed that field goal, it should have been overtime.
And that's the game we're going to get into when we go into a Power 5 section of the show.
No. I didn't mean to jump into it earlier, bro. I'm just
No, you good. That was a good example.
Yeah, just use that as example,
That was a good example. Very good example. Just staying in the HBCU section, the conversation, I should say. Coach Prime was on 60 Minutes with Jackson State this past weekend, and he mentioned that if a Power 5 school reaches out to him, he's more than likely to answer the call. Now, our last show, we was talking about, Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. made that comment. Basically, he's not going to be here. He's not going to be at Jackson State. As soon as a Power 5 school reaches out to him, he's gone. So a lot of people, was basically saying, well, after Coach Prime has said this on 60 Minutes, Coach Eddie Robinson Jr., even though he was on some jealousy type stuff, in our opinion, he's got a point. But I want to hear your feedback on that. And I'll finish it with mine. Go ahead, Coach.
All right. I'm gonna be honest with you. From the standpoint of a coach and a teacher, personally, you always have to put yourself in the best situation to be successful. Because
Right.
Just using my own personal experience, one of my coaching friends and I was talking, and he was like, basically, like, man, coach, a lot of coaches saying like, hey, like, how come all the schools you coach, how come they always like losing teams, so on and so forth. And I'm like, well, coach, like I was telling you earlier, no coach had success without having a lot of players. I mean, having good to great players. And most of the coaching situations, not most of them, but all the coaching situations I've been in, essentially I've just played the hand that I was dealt. Some of these coaches that I'm coaching against on the middle school level, they have like glorified all-star teams where they pretty much hand all the players they want, and then like 30 to 40 players. Whereas from my perspective, like the team I just finished coaching, I only had 12 players.
Right.
Football numbers game, if I have 12 and you have like 40, of course that's going to play in your favor. And even from a teaching standpoint, you could get offered a job by a better school, and you can say, no, I'm going to be loyal to this school. But when push comes to shove, if they're in a situation where they're going to get rid of you, they're not going to think twice. They're not going to hesitate. They're going to get rid of you. So at the end of the day, what you want to do is, from a personal perspective, you have to kind of look out for your own best interests, and you have to do what's best for you. And the handwriting's been on the wall since he arrived at Jackson State. Whenever, whether it's Florida State or whoever, when a Power 5 schools is gonna come knocking, he's gonna answer that call. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think we all have to kind of put ourselves in his shoes from that dynamic in terms of that standpoint of where, hey, we got to do what's in our own best interest as individuals. You know, in some instances
Yeah.
it may be selfish, but I don't see it as a selfish thing. I mean, you know, we want to get paid for our talents and for what we do. So, you know, it's the same with him as a business. So, of course, and I think that's part of the reason why, you know, Southern opted for Coach Eric Dooley as opposed to Kevin Sumlin, because they knew Kevin Sumlin was only using Southern as a stepping stone to another Power Five job, you know, and I think people knew it. And like I say, in terms of Deion Sanders, he's kind of like once in a lifetime in terms of, you know, his charisma, you know, you know, his mouthpiece, you know, him being able to articulate as well as he does. So I think it's inevitable whether he stays till the door graduates, Travis Hunter or whoever graduates. Eventually, at some point, he's gonna end up in a Power Five school. It's inevitable. So, you know, I think nobody should knock him, or even Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. saying, "Hey, he's not swag." I mean, you know, and it's crazy. It's ironic because when Southern pretty much put the icing on the cake against Alcorn, literally, a section of fans like right above me and to my left, they start chanting, "We are swag." And I'm thinking to myself, it's crazy how this Eddie Robinson Jr. like Prime, Coach Prime situation is just turning every time I pull up something on Facebook and they talk about swag teams just saying we are swag. Southern fans chanting we are swag. And you know, once they finally got the win over Alcorn, I'm like, man, it's crazy. But you know, you can't knock him for doing what's in his own best interest because it's gonna happen at some point. But
Now
this
here's
season,
my. Go ahead, Coach.
yeah. I'm finished, bro.
My apologies. So, but good, very good point. He Coach Prime definitely have to do what's in his best interest. They can say we are swag all we want, which y'all they are swag. But if they doing it that to slight Coach Prime because his roots isn't HBCU, um, then they need to wake up and smell the coffee because Coach Prime has, and I'm not talking about recruiting the talent necessarily because, like you said, Coach Richardson from Southern back in the day, there was some power five talent he can get his hands on. He'll do it. He'll go for him. So there were coaches back in the day, long for a long time, that wasn't necessarily scared to go after talent. Not necessarily uh, 5-star, but they wasn't scared to go after that talent. But the point I am making is that Coach Prime picked up the phone and made calls. If the facilities were raggedy, the field was raggedy, the food was nasty, Coach Prime would use his wealth and use his resources to make a better experience for those children down there. And a lot of these HBCUs, I hope they took notes. So yeah, he may leave, but when he leaves, I hope a lot of the alumni of these HBCUs, these deans, all of them need to take notes because a lot of you remember in 2015 and 16 the state of how bad the conditions were for that Grambling State ball club in 2015 and 16. Remember that?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm gonna be truthful. You know, like some of the guys I went to Southern with, you know, I don't know if Jay Good could attest to this, but I know this one guy, you know, my dad worked at a chemical plant in St. James for like 22 years. And one of his coworkers, her son was playing for Southern at the time. He transferred from another school out of state, and he was only on a partial scholarship. He didn't get he played, and he was a starter. He didn't have a full scholarship, and he didn't get the start. I mean, he started. He was a starter, but he didn't get a full scholarship until his senior year. And at one point, he got injured and got hurt. And Coach Richardson sent the bill to his mom. And she sent it back to him like, hey, like he's playing for you. Like, no, y'all need to cover his medical expenses. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is ridiculous. And, another coworker was basically saying, uh, like a similar type story because uh, his son was starting at starting cornerback at Southern or whatever, and he asked his dad for money after one of the games. And my dad, I was talking to his dad. He was like, what do you want? He was like, man, he playing. He got a scholarship instead of third, and he come ask me for money. So I'm like, wow. So yeah, so I understand that dynamic in terms of the facilities and the food, whatever the case may be, because even to be truthful, I mean even Pete Richardson, that was, one of the reasons why, it was sad to see him, you know, get fired when he did, because all those facilities and resources and everything they have in Southern, that's a direct benefit of Pete Richardson. But I'm glad he's back in another capacity, and he's able to see the fruits of his labor. So a lot of SWAC schools has been stepping it up since Coach Prime entered into the SWAC.
Yeah, they have, and I want to welcome my my LDBC brother Brent Fox onto the show. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Thank y'all for having me on.
What's good with you, bro?
What's happening, Coach 67? I saw you at the meet and greet, brother. You was in the
Yeah,
Southern gear.
yeah. I had Southern gear even then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was in a charcoal gray shirt, player made shirt. It's from the Black Gentleman collection. Junior the Truth be making the merchandise for stuff like that. So, I wanted to go out there and represent Big Bro.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. I remember you, Brent Fox.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just to catch you up, Brent. And Jay Good is in the chat answering your question. I'm gonna highlight that for you, Coach. Um, but just to catch you up, Brent, we were talking about how basically how a lot of the HBCU SWAC schools were basically trying to circle the wagon against Coach Prime, saying he's not SWAC because he didn't come from an HBCU background.
Mm.
But my issue I have with that is he's putting a blueprint down for future coaches
Mm-hmm.
or um, uh, other people that can turn these programs around, because once he took a look at the fields, the facilities, and how bad the food was in these on these campuses, he used his resources, he used his wealth, he made some phone calls to companies he's partnered with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, y'all talking about, oh, he's just using Jackson State for his sons. Okay, maybe, but I hope y'all taking notes.
Yeah, absolutely. And in those instances, man, um, I have to actually go the route of agreeing with Coach Prime on this one. First of all, him showing up to Jackson State brought notoriety to the HBCUs. Because for a long time we've been struggling. Excuse me. And when I say we, my brother is a Prairie View alumni. So
Panthers, okay.
yeah, Panthers. But yeah, he brought notoriety to the school. He also got in other NFL Hall of Famers like Eddie George to actually coach a school in Tennessee.
Tennessee
So
State.
I mean, without that type of notoriety, it's not going to get any. It's not going to get the attention it deserves.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. Well said, Brent. Um, just want to read the comment from Jay Good put in the chat. It said it. He said it was common in the '90s. Southern had limited scholarships, unlike D1 A schools, so they had to rely on walk-ons. Majority of the team was walk-ons.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely made sense. And, just to kind of elaborate on Brent Fox's is what he said. I kind of said the same thing last week. He brought, you know, Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. saying that hey, he's not swag, but Coach Eddie Robinson Sr. is arguably the greatest coach, not just swag, greatest college coach of all time.
All time. Yes, sir.
And guess what? Coach Prime has brought like notoriety and attention, probably even more so than Eddie Robinson Sr. So he's brought a lot of notoriety, a lot of attention to swag football. That's why you have a lot of players because unlike the '90s, like we talked about, like Jay Good and I talked about, where you get a lot of players transferring from LSU and from other Power Five schools to Southern and other HBCUs. It's been a paradigm shift. Like you have schools like UTSA and FIU and FAU, and players rather transfer from LSU to maybe like a UTSA or another community college to transfer to another big school. Whereas now, since Coach Prime is entering into the SWAC, a lot of these players, instead of transferring to those type of schools, you'll rather transfer to a Jackson State or maybe a Grambling or wherever. So he's brought a lot of notoriety to the SWAC. And, it's been an uptick in terms of morale and momentum in the SWAC. So, I felt it was a little bit disrespectful for Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. to say that, considering, I understand that Coach Prime is an Eddie Robinson Sr., he is a Marino Chasm. He is a Pete Richardson, Henry Frazier III, or whatever SWAC coach you want to point out. But, he's done a lot for the SWAC in a short amount of time he's been there. So, I just felt like it was a little bit of jealousy, me personally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it
That's all
was
it boiled
jealousy.
down to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's all that was. And let's be honest here, fellas. If you was HBCU, doesn't matter if it was Division 1, Division 2, and you had the opportunity to coach at a Power 5 school, why wouldn't you take it? Would you take it?
I would in a heartbeat.
Exactly. So I'm. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of coaches that are loyal to the conference. You know what I mean? They're out there, but uh dudes got mortgages and car payments. You know what
And
I'm saying?
families.
And
And
Understand.
families.
families. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
But
and
go
I don't
ahead. I'm
mean to
sorry,
cut you
coach.
off. I don't mean to cut you off, bro, but at the end of the day, you have to do what's in your own best interest. We've seen this time and time again with, you know, with somebody like a Brian Kelly, uh, Nick Saban from Michigan State to LSU, and then from LSU to the Miami Dolphins. He told the Miami Dolphins in the press, "Hey, I'm not leaving." And guess what? That Thursday, he was on the plane going to Tuscaloosa. So at the end of the day, you got to do what's in your own best interest. Because hey, if today or tomorrow push come to shove, your program fell off, they're not gonna hesitate to push you out the door.
Yeah. And I think the right way to play that, while I was saying that I'm sorry, hang on.
It's all right, man.
Okay, what I was saying was while I would actually take the Power 5 school in a heartbeat, what I would want to do primarily is yes, I'm going to go to a Power 5 school, get my name out there, get my notoriety up, and
Mm.
if I can actually just bring that back to the HBCU schools to try to make that whole plateau a lot better, is what I would probably have in mind. But yeah, I would take a job at a Power 5 school just to make sure that I bring all of that back to where it actually belongs.
Very good point, Brent. Very good point. Um, but a lot of coaches, they're not gonna do that. They gonna if they can stay, um, in the Power 5 school, they will. But not saying that they're not out there that do that. But if you want, but the example Brent just said, if you want to make the SWAC more, bring that seniority as far as coaching, um, to the SWAC schools like Coach Prime is doing, then that's what you do. That's what you do. Um, so I mean, I don't understand what people expect.
Right. And you know what? Quietly, I think that the situation in Jackson really improved because of Primetime's influence.
Yes,
Like
sir.
I don't
Yes,
really
sir.
see anybody else bringing that situation to the forefront and then having an issue resolved that quickly. Like that would have been swept up under the rug. Flint still ain't got no clean water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's astonishing. And, and just to kind of bring up another point too. I mean, I know Eddie Robinson Jr. dad is a legendary coach, and he's at Alabama State. But let's be realistic. If Auburn came out knocking on his door tomorrow and said, "Hey, we want you to be the next head coach of Auburn," you think he's gonna stay at Alabama State?
I doubt it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my point. Yeah, exactly, coach. Or not even head coach, defensive coordinator,
Yeah,
special teams.
because even those, like you say, even those coordinators, they make a lot more than the swag coaches do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, unfortunately they do. But when tuition is like $40,000 a semester, then and that's
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
low schools. Like the high end ones, like Miami, I think they tuition is what, like 80,000 per semester.
yeah. It's something crazy.
Jay Good, I know you lying. First, hold on. First, let me read what he said. He said we also had a few props, 48 on the squad. They got scholarships but dormant for a year. But also,
Yeah.
Jay Good put that Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. and the uh legendary Coach Eddie Robinson, he said they're not related.
Oh,
What?
I did not know that.
no, I did not know that. I did.
Oh,
And now
Then that he should double. Excuse my language. Should double shut the hell up. Then
for real, for real. But what Jay Good saying in terms of the props, like if you had a player that was extremely talented, but he wasn't as good from an academic standpoint, he's
right,
right. He'd have to sit out a year because I remember when I went to some the starting running back my senior year, he was a junior. And when I went to Southern, I was a student, he went to Grambling the following year, but he had to sit out a year. And he was the feature back his sophomore year and his junior year. But since he didn't graduate on time, he didn't get that extra year eligibility back. So he would have
mm,
so props in those days in white schools were real prominent. He might be an exceptional athlete, but he would have to sit out that year and he would get that raise for the extra year eligibility back if they graduated on time, but a lot of them weren't. So I know exactly what he's talking about.
wow.
man.
And you think that will be that's is that still going on today, Coach?
Nah, I mean, like I said, it's a different day and age. Uh, Southern struggled a few years ago in terms of you know not having enough players to graduate under the end of Pete Richardson's tenure, and it kind of spilled over in the Stump Mitchell situation. And even with Dawson Odoms a little bit. So that's why they had some issues with the NCAA in terms of, having certain sanctions and stuff. But that situation is over and done with. I mean, in terms of their graduation rate, it's way up. Because in fact, one of the other shows, Swag shows, when it comes to Swag HBCU Sports, this guy is the name of the show is Off Script. He kind
Yeah,
of touched on
officer.
that. Yeah, he touched on that in terms of one of his topics, and basically was saying like with the NCAA, it's like the playing field isn't level. Whereas you have somebody like LSU driving a Ferrari, and you can't catch them, so you just let them go. Whereas Southern might be I don't know, an Impala or something. You can catch them, you pull them over, and you giving them a ticket. It's like, hey, you let the Ferrari go. So it was that type of situation. It's like even LSU they had a situation recently with the NCAA, and it's like it seems almost as if with LSU it's like every other year, but when you got these Power Five schools and they have all these resources and boosters and alumni and all this money flowing through their university, it's like a double standard when it comes to the HBCU and the Power Five school. So
Yeah, Scotty. I ain't know he lived in Dallas. Jay Good. And that's Scotty. He's the he runs that off script show on YouTube. So I did not know he lives in Dallas. And Jay Good also said, I see both sides. Coach Prime isn't completely squeaky clean though in the Alabama State homecoming fiasco. Maybe not, but the Alabama State players cussing at the grown men like that, saying what this nigga doing over here and all that, and walking up to him saying F Jackson State and stuff like that. And I know it's a football game and stuff like that, but come on, you conduct yourself as a young man or being a coach over those players. You can tell them to conduct themselves a little better than that.
Yeah, and I addressed it in a video on my channel, and I kind of see all sides of it. But me personally, I'm gonna be truthful. It's like from a coaching etiquette standpoint, I always go find a opposing coach, shake their hand before the game, and stand the third. And I mean, I addressed it like point by point, but I didn't see nothing Coach Prime did to be like, nah, man, don't. I'll shake your hand, but don't hug me. This, that, and the third. I mean, I felt like he just kind of went a little bit too far with it, me personally.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right to get frustrated, man, but you have to aim that frustration in the right area.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I recently learned that, and I'm still trying to make sure that I do that. And I'm over 40, so yeah, I
We
get it.
all
But at the same time, you got to conduct yourself better. You're a leader, so you have to. People look at that too, so you have to conduct yourself better than that.
Hey, Jay Good was a dude on the field to be starting stuff, but he got your back though. He said, Jay Good said, game day is territorial. Shador was warming up on their side. Also, you got to stay on your side.
Oh no, yeah, I ain't gonna lie. That's a huge no
Yeah,
no. That's a huge no
I
no.
ain't know that, Jay Good. I ain't gonna lie. You got me there, man. I ain't know that because I
Yeah,
just watched that. You remember that video I sent you, Coach,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
them cussing?
I saw that, and like I said, I kind of addressed it, on one of my own videos on my channel, because even like right after that, we had a game at my school, and the gate was locked. So a couple of the two best players on my team went to open the gate for the opposing team, because the opposing team, their head coach, him and I are friends, but they really didn't go to open the gate. They just went to talk trash to the opposing team. I'm like, bro, they got like two of y'all. They got like 30, 35 of them. Like, why would y'all go over there and talk crazy? So those type of things happen pregame.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
mm.
Hey, but hey, when you fired up, you got that adrenaline going. I feel it. I feel it. But
But I know I'm trying to be smart though, bro.
yeah,
Two versus
exactly.
35 is a bad numbers game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. It ain't no movie. You ain't finna you ain't finna take all of them out.
In
I'm
fact,
telling
hey,
you.
even on the field, that's the reason why the outcome was it was, because guess what? We got 12 players. They got like 35, 40. So, football is a numbers game, and you got to be smart.
hmm Definitely. It's definitely about matchups in real life. Like,
Yeah.
like if your matchup ain't looking good, you in trouble.
But
Yeah, you
from
ain't
a coach,
lying.
from a coaching standpoint, I know that though, Brent. My players didn't understand that.
Clearly not, brother. Clearly not.
Wow.
Woo. But hey,
Oh,
man, shout outs to them because they had some dog in them to go up there and just be two of them go against 30 plus. That's crazy.
It's that it goes, Brent. It goes so much deeper down the rabbit hole. And if I actually got to telling the whole story, y'all be shaking y'all head. But I'm not gonna
dang.
expose them like that. So
I hear
unless
you.
you live in Baton Rouge, you wouldn't know the. Unless you was at the game, you probably would know the whole story. But it's
Hey,
far deeper than that, bro. Trust me.
my twin brother gonna be mad telling you this story, y'all this story. So we at a little bit time we was there at North Mesquite. We got in a fight with a school named Mesquite Horn in Texas. So uh, so
Yeah, I know
basically,
exactly what you're talking about.
I threw the punch, but they caught my brother. He was just trying to break it up. They caught my brother on camera. He ain't throw no punch, but he ended up getting in school suspension, and I kept playing. He was mad. He was mad as heck, boy. He like they thought he was me. I tried to tell him that, but they tried to say they caught him on camera, but he wasn't really fighting. He was just
Mm.
breaking up the scrum.
Wow.
Dang. Man, they got the wrong twin.
They got the wrong twin.
Well, it
Golly.
happened to me last year too. I wrote up a student. It wasn't him. It was his brother, and he lied and
Mm.
said, "Oh yeah." But at least in this instance, he lied on his brother, and his brother just had to take the L.
Oh man, that's messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Josh had to do. But Jay Good said, "Hey, you see what happened in Prairie?"
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. The pregame fight between Southern and PV. Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
like I say, those things happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like I mentioned on my video, it's ironic that it happened. The pregame fight between Southern and Prairie View happened because the crazy thing about it is, like my first year at Southern's band and Prairie View's band got in the fight,
Mm.
and man, it was a big deal, made national headline news, and even Tom Joyner, he talked about bad how bad Southern band was and distasteful it was because at the time Southern didn't allow girls in their band. It was all males. And even though Prairie View band was twice as big as Southern band, like 2/3 of the band was girls. So of course those boys they just mopped the floor with the girls. And man, it was a big thing. And the two local news stations here in Baton Rouge, man, they covered that for like, I kid you not, for like 15 years straight. Every time
Yep.
Southern and Prairie View played, they brought that up. Now if that had been
Mm.
LSU, after that first year, so they would just sweep it under the rug. So, it's a double standard when it comes to HBCUs and Power Five schools.
Oh, definitely. You can't affect the bottom line with them Power Five schools.
Yeah,
No.
but not on that. But when something happens like that, the news cycle it just transitions so quick that you just forget about it. Whereas with the Southern, it's like they tried to ingrain, hey, see these two HBCU bands, look how bad that is for them fighting on the field and hitting each other with instruments and that type of thing. It was like such a bad look. They just tried to, spin a bad narrative in terms of, basically this how HBCUs act, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Yeah.
I,
They know better than that.
yeah, I
Cause
wouldn't
not also
expect anything less from like the actual mainstream media. They,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Um, I hear echo. Y'all hear me?
Yeah,
yeah,
I
we
can
can.
hear you.
Okay. So Jay Good said it happened in '98. And Jay Good did confirm it was on ESPN.
Yeah,
He said,
that was my
he,
first year summer.
yeah, he said my freshman year the crowd made Texas Southern football team sprint to the bus from Mumford.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna lie. To this day, like I remember when I was like a kid, I was like 9 years old. Uh, we was at AW Mumford and Southern had a home game. They won. After the game, somebody yelled knife, somebody else yelled gun. It was just like a stampede. So at the time, Southern had these ticket offices all around campus. Well, not all around campus, but they had like two ticket offices on each side of the stadium. So my mom grabbed me with one hand and my sister with the other hand and pulled us against the ticket office. And my dad, like people were like bumping into him and stuff, but he was a bigger guy. And he was looking for us, but my mom had already grabbed us. To the day he passed, we never sat on the home side at Southern Stadium at AW Mumford Stadium ever again. We ever said that we always sat on the east side. We never sat on the west side like again. So until after he passed, we didn't go back on the west side. In fact, even all the games we'd have been in this year, we always sit on the east side. So he's right. On that student side, it's a little bit more rowdy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's different now, but back then, oh yeah, that was the issue there.
Man, I can imagine. Uh, we're gonna move toward the to the college. We're gonna touch a little bit on it because on one topic I want to talk about the upset on the Tennessee versus Bama game. And I know Will somewhere he was hot when we mentioned it on his show. Uh, Coach, I'm gonna start off with you. What you think about that game about the Tennessee? Was you surprised?
First of all, I wasn't upset. I mean,
Okay,
the way they beat down LSU the previous week, it wasn't an upset to me. And the only thing I regretted is the fact that kickoff for Southern and Alcorn was at 6 o'clock at A.W. Mumford Stadium. So when I left my house, because my home is only like 15 minutes away from campus. So when I left home, the score was 28-28. And as I was sitting in the stadium, I pulled it up on my phone, and then when my coaching friends texted me, and then when my cousins texted me, and I'm like, damn, Tennessee won. So I'd already DVR'd it, from the point that I left to the point I came back. I watched the rest of it. And like I say, people talk about, coaches' deficiencies, especially when they had the USA Today poll that you and I were talking about a couple weeks ago, but why they don't hire like certain black coaches to be like head coaches in the NFL. It's crazy because not Pete Richards. Let me say Pete Richards. Nick Saban is arguably, if not considered the greatest college coach of all time. From a clock management standpoint, he should not have left enough time on that clock for Tennessee to go down the field with Hayden Hooker and get in field goal range and kick the game winning field goal. When Alabama missed that field goal, that should have been the end of regulation, and it should have went to overtime. So if he's great, either he's the greatest college coach of all time, or arguably anyway, Power Five from that standpoint. Because to me, I still think Eddie Robinson is the greatest head coach of all time. But with
he
that
is.
being said, if he's that guy, how come from a clock management standpoint, he didn't realize like, hey, we can't give Tennessee no time, give the ball back with no time. We should have just run the clock out. So
Yeah, and a lot of that actually goes into being able to properly judge the flow and the tempo of the game too. So, and there's no excuse for that. Like if you're that great, you should have those things already just kind of vested in your DNA. Like you should already know that, hey, I already have a feeling that if we give these guys too much time, something adverse is going to happen. So let's just try to drain the clock a little bit. And then if we have to, give the ball back with as little time as possible.
exactly, bro, exactly.
Can I can I honestly say that the Alabama secondary could not hold that Tennessee wide core to save their life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. Tennessee offense is explosive. So whether it's Hayden Hooker or whether it's the weapons he has out on the perimeter, I mean, Tennessee offense is explosive. I mean, like I said, they rolled it up the previous week against LSU. So that offense, it's gonna be hard to contain them. You have to outscore them if anything.
I gotta give Cali Enigma his props. He called this 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. It was the Texas A&M game. How they gave up. Alabama gave up points. He called basically. He said when they play a team like Tennessee, they gonna lose. So I have to give props to Cali Enigma. He did call. Uh, so that I ain't gonna lie. I'm not a Bama fan. But it was refreshing to see them lose. I ain't gonna front.
Yeah, yeah. You just got to, you know.
Say it again, Coach. You cut out.
I said you got to see the same team on top of the year, so it is refreshing to see them lose.
Yeah, you always tired of seeing. Go ahead, Brent.
No, you got to go ahead.
You always tired of seeing the same old powerhouses like Alabama or Georgia or whatever. Like, dang, let somebody else. But I mean that's good coaching and recruiting. But Tennessee, if you've been paying attention, Tennessee, the last couple of years, you could see the talent getting there. They just either had holes on the that defensive line. They didn't have the talent to um, compete with the Alabamas in the secondary defensive line. Can't say that this year.
Yeah, definitely can't.
You definitely can't. But it was a very exciting game. Even though that kick that won the game, that was a raggedy kick that you ever saw, wasn't it?
Hey,
Oh,
it
yeah, it
went through
was
the,
a knuckleball.
It went through.
it
It
went
went
through.
through.
That's all that matters.
Yes,
Hmm.
sir. That was a raggedy kick though, but it got it done. Um, Jay Good say he was wondering why all your videos when you do your video was on the east side.
Yeah, good looking, bro.
Telling you, man. Um, but here's what. So, oh, and another thing I want to say about Hendon Hooker, I'm glad he out the ACC. Because if he was still with Virginia, he would have he would have tore my Tar Heels to pieces, man.
Yeah, I could imagine, bro.
Mm.
I'm glad he transferred to Tennessee because he is definitely a beast. Um, but I this part of the show I'm not going to enjoy as much. You either, Brent. We're gonna move to a little bit of NFL action.
Oh, okay. I got you. Go ahead and buckle up my seatbelt.
Yeah, go ahead and buckle up, man.
Click, click.
So I'm gonna go over the scores if just for the people that's listening or they gonna rewatch it and they don't know who won what.
Hmm.
Uh, Commanders beat the Bears 12-7. My Ravens fell to the Giants 24-20. Jaguars lose to the Colts 34-27. Patriots beat the Browns 38-15. Bengals lose a tough one. Win a tough one to the Saints
Mm.
30-26. Coach over there shaking his head. Buccaneers fall to the Steelers. You know what? That was a good. The reason why y'all I said that buckle up, Brent, is because isn't Kenny Pickett in concussion protocol?
Yes, sir, he is. I am waiting to see whether or not he is actually cleared to play. But Coach Tomlin done already said if he's cleared to play, he's gonna play.
Yeah, I don't. Him being a former Tar Heel, I wouldn't recommend putting Mitch Trubisky in at this point because you already got a flow with Kenny Pickett. Um, uh,
Now he was serviceable this game.
he was because it was fresh. Mitch Trubisky can throw, um, the short throws and uh, uh, the curls and the outs and whatever.
Hmm.
And he's very mobile. He's not
Yeah,
a Lamar Jackson or anything like that, but he can move out of the pocket.
yeah,
So
he did to his credit. Now I'll give credit when it's due. He did throw a couple of nice mid to long range balls, especially one to Chase Claypool, like out of all downs on third down. I think it was third and long, like third and 16 or something like that. And he hit him with a back shoulder fade. So shouts out to Mitch for getting that right. We appreciate him when he's able to help the team. But yeah, his performances were just they weren't bad, man. They were just flat. And you can't
inconsistent.
yeah, you can't build anything off of just that.
And right, and hold that thought, Brent, because we're gonna come back to you because I have a few questions about your Steelers.
Okay.
Um, uh, uh, Falcons finally get into the well, they won one game, but they finally uh win another game to beating the 49ers, which is surprising, 28-14.
Mm-hmm.
Jets beat Packers 27-10. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Packers may need to go into panic mode right about now. Uh, Vikings beat Dolphins 24-16. Panthers fall again. They fall to the Rams 24-10. Cardinals beat no lose to the Seahawks 19-9.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills, and it was a very, if you guys did not watch this game, y'all missed it. It was a very good game.
Mm-hmm.
Bills finally beat the Chiefs 24-20. Cowboys fall in a good game uh, to the Eagles 26-17. And then finally, the Broncos lose to the Chargers 19-16. And a lot of Broncos fans are regretting they picked up Russell. Um,
Mm-hmm. I got a family member that's a Broncos fan, man. He is hot.
so and Atlanta is 3-3. I'm sorry. I'm so I haven't been following them like that, but they 3-3. But they've been looking like Brent would say flat. So I'm surprised they won anything at all. But I'm gonna start with you, Coach. Who impressed you this past weekend? I should say. You
Okay,
talking?
we can't hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, brother.
Uh-uh.
Nuh-uh. We can see your mouth moving.
Yeah, we can see your mouth moving.
Nope. All right. Well, Brent, who impressed you? Who didn't? Could be your team. It could be a game you watched, and you were like, "Dang, that's a good game." Who impressed you and who didn't?
This
This past.
answer is gonna surprise you, man. I was actually very impressed by the New York Jets. They played
Yes.
well in all three phases of the game. They had a special teams. I think they had like a special teams play where they blocked a punt. Um, Defense was playing very well. They kept Aaron Rodgers under wraps, which I hate because he was on my fantasy football team. And they ran the ball effectively and passed when they needed to. It was effective. It was nothing over the top, but it was effective. And I mean they pretty much controlled the game in Lambeau Field. Like that's not something that you're just easily able to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know who helped win that game mostly on the defensive side of the ball? That that beast in the middle, Quentin Williams. He was
Mm-hmm.
terrorizing that offensive line. I mean, like pushing them to the side like they some leaves, like you walking through the forest or whatever. And he was just terrorizing Aaron Rodgers, man.
Yeah. At one point, man, he looked like my son knocking the baby gate over at the house, man. He just
Exactly.
pushed through. He just pushed through, man, and just did whatever he wanted to do.
Yes, it was, and this boy is only he's only been in the league. He's only
Was it second,
24.
third year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
4 years. But he was recruited. I mean, not recruited. He was drafted very young.
Mm-hmm.
So he's man, if he plays like this, he can be very special on the defensive side of the ball. Um, but yeah, the Jets, you're absolutely right. The Jets did come to play. Um, Bryce Hall had 116 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah. Very impressive.
Coach, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, bro.
Now we're going. Now let's do it again. So I'm gonna ask you the same question. So who impressed you? It can be, and who didn't. It could be your team or a game that you was watching. It was like, dang, that's a good game.
The team I was impressed with the most, I'd say, was the Buffalo Bills. The fact that
Mm,
they were able to pull out a huge win, and I know Pat Mahomes, he's my guy, but he had a terrible interception at the end of that game that pretty much ended the
Hmm.
game. I was impressed with the Bills, and in terms of who I was least impressed with, I don't mean to sound like a homer, but my Saints. There's no way they shouldn't have won that game. They should have beat the Bengals. Uh, it, really, Saints game and Southern game was kind of similar. The only difference was Southern held off Alcorn at the end, and the Saints couldn't do it to the Bengals. And the crazy thing about it is, the Bengals' best pass rusher Trey Hendrickson. He played for the Saints, so I don't see why they didn't double him in certain situations. So
yeah, I don't know what I was looking up. Y'all was winning. Andy Dalton seemed like y'all was managing the game. Then y'all let him come back. Correct.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they relied heavily on a run game. You know, and the crazy thing about it was, at one point they had like what 4 possessions in a row where they scored, but every
Right.
last one they kicked the field goal. So had they scored touchdowns when they got the red zone instead of kicking field goals, I think they win that game. They let essentially let the Bengals hang around, and the Saints' best cornerback Lattimore, he's out, and you know my friend Jamar Chase, him and Joe Burrow, they won the national championship in the Superdome, and Sunday they came to play, and they basically was reliving their championship moment in the Superdome, and they just had a field day with the Saints, and in the clutch time when the play needed to be made, he went to Joe Burrow went to Chase, and then at the end, all Eddie Dalton really is a game manager, and
Yeah.
he couldn't, he couldn't get him over the hump, and of course, in his defense, the Saints' top three receivers, they all hurt. Michael Thomas is hurt. Uh, uh, Jarvis Juice Landry is hurt, and they rookie wide receiver uh, Chris Olave, he hurt also. So a lot of guys they brought up from the practice squad. They played well. I think they played well enough for them to win. But as usual, the Saints just fumbled it at the end.
Mm.
Yeah. 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 I don't think y'all squad is bad, but y'all, I think y'all biggest issue is quarterback right now.
Yeah, I
Um.
mean, and it's no telling when Jameis Winston is going to be back because that traverse fracture, it's really nothing to play with. So, it's and I think the only glimmer of hope as a Saints fan that I have is the fact that the whole NFC South is flat. The Falcons aren't really impressive, the Bucks aren't impressive, and the Panthers are falling apart. And I think the only win is against the Saints. So if they can get it together, they can make a run. But they have to turn the light on now. No more time to play around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brent is gonna like this a little bit. The team that impressed me. Um. Their record is not where they want it to be, but I have to give it to them for. And I can't believe I'm saying this to be a Baltimore Ravens fan. I'm gonna have to say the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's all right. That's all
I
right.
will, I will, I will have to say they impressed me just as far as the defense haven't been the Pittsburgh Steelers defense of old, but they did just enough to hang in there to let the offense Chase Claypool 7 reception, 96 yards, a touchdown. Um, even uh, Hayward's little brother, C. Hayward,
Mm-hmm.
um, had only 2 receptions, but had two uh, big catches that moved the chains to keep the Pittsburgh afloat. Um, and of course, Cam Hayward doing what he does at a sack. So even though that it was wasn't the prettiest of games. They did what they had to, and but my question is, what's going on with Najee Harris, man? Is that foot still bothering him?
I believe it still is. I've looked at some tape from this year. Well, obviously this year, and then maybe that Browns game that we had on Monday night from last year.
Hmm.
There's a significant difference, man. Um, the agility is not the same. The burst to the hole definitely not the same. Now, the only thing that I could probably give him is that the leg drive, for whatever reason, and coach kind of understands why I'm saying it that way. The leg drive, for whatever reason, isn't that far off, but the agility and then the burst through like the openings or creases, man, it's not there. So much so that we have to put our second back in from time to time, Jalen Warren, who does a good job, like in pass protection, and he goes out there, he catches passes too. But he also runs the ball a little bit more effectively because he bursts through the hole like he should.
Okay, okay.
That,
I go ahead, Coach.
Oh,
that foot heat acceleration when you trying to hit the hole in the back.
mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah,
I
he
say,
definitely a
coach will
different
know
back.
that.
Yeah, I was like, man, this boy beats. I know he can run. And again, this is me. I'm not a fan of the Steelers at all. But
It's all right, brother. You can turn that bird blanket in for a terrible towel, man.
no,
It's all right.
I have a terrible towel in, by my toilet stool just in case.
Oh,
But 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 I do recognize talent. Uh, Najee Harris is a talent, man. He could be when healthy. I think he can be even better than Saquon Barkley. But he has to be healthy. If he gets that foot together, then yeah, y'all as far as the running game, y'all be straight. But
yeah.
the team that did not impress me, I'm gonna do a coach here. I'm gonna be a homer. A Baltimore Ravens, man. Like, and I'm not gonna put it on any of the players. A lot of the Ravens fans were blaming like Lamar and the defense. I put it on Greg Roman.
Mm,
Our offensive, the certain plays that we ran, I feel like sometimes we put ourselves in positions we should not be,
mm,
and it's not getting us eating up the clock like we should, and it's putting all the pressure on our defense. And we don't have, and we're. I'm not saying we're as bad, but we're in a similar situation as the Steelers. We don't have the same. We're not the Baltimore Raven defense as old. So we do have Pro Bowlers in that secondary, but because of misassignments and players playing out of place, we're basically last in the league as far as passing yards.
mm,
Last time I checked, and Greg Roman had made some play. I'm subscribed to a gentleman named Sip Tally. He's a coach. Um, he's a Baltimore Ravens fan, and he was like he basically, you know, some of the players he's coached are playing on Saturdays, like on
mm-hmm.
Power Five schools, and you can hear him saying, "What the heck? Like, why would you even run that? Why would you even run that play?" And I'm just ready for him to go. I think Lamar will not grow. Um, I do appreciate Greg Roman for trying to adjust for Lamar, but as far as the passing game, it's not going to be beneficial for Lamar in the future. And if it don't change, Lamar's going to be in another uniform.
Oh wow. That is a very bold statement because that's y'all's franchise player.
I know. But speaking of that, our topic is racism in sports. And coach, I don't, you remember you sent me a video on why Lamar has not signed the contract, and Jalen Rose basically made a very good point, which it skipped through my mind, but it didn't I didn't know how to convey it like he did. You I'm sorry, I still hear a little background noise. Can you convey it? Can you basically review what the video that you sent me the other day, what Jalen Rose said?
Essentially, what Jalen Rose was saying, excuse me.
You good?
Essentially, what Jalen Rose was saying is the fact that uh, he had two videos that kind of connected. He was saying if you look at from a sports standpoint, if you look at the sports that are traditionally African American or black players like NFL, NBA, like in those leagues, basically you have to go to college for at least 1 year. You know, if you're gonna go to NBA, 3 years if you're going to the NFL, you have to. So in the predominantly white sports like hockey, baseball, golf, you can jump straight from high school to the pro ranks, tennis, whatever the case may be. So essentially, what he's saying is from a from a racial standpoint, because of the slave system, you have to feed into the system and make them money before you could go pro. And he tied it into the video that I sent to you, bro. And basically, he was saying that the reason why Deshaun Watson got his $225 million guaranteed is the fact that he has a white agent, and from a racial standpoint, Deshaun Watson is feeding into that same oppressive system of racism, from a slave trade standpoint. Whereas Lamar Jackson, he has his mom as his agent, and he's not feeding to that same system. I mean, the numbers are set in stone already. You know what I'm saying? Because if Deshaun Watson got 225 million guaranteed, and Lamar Jackson is a better player, he doesn't have any off the field baggage the way Deshaun Watson has with the whole, sexual assault situation with all the massages and the different masseuses he been having access to. So if he don't have all these issues going on, why hasn't he got paid? So basically, he was saying the fact that Deshaun Watson has a white agent that deals with these owners and general managers, whatever case may be. That's why it was easy for him to get his $225 million contract guaranteed. Whereas uh, Lamar Jackson is going to be a little bit more difficult for him. Since his mom is his agent and he's not using one of these agents to kind of feed into the system from a systemic standpoint. So he's not feeding to the system in terms of, you know, hiring a white agent, and give him X amount of millions of his dollars, whatever the percentage is, 5%, 10%, whatever it is. He's not feeding into that system, so it's hard for him to get his contract.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that's what and that's what black athletes who take a stand, or not even black, it could be black coaches, um, black fans, just what the LGBC deals with. When we point out the obvious racism that goes on against Deontay Wilder, Errol Spence, or whatever, the pushback we get. Uh, I just want to talk about on a human level. How does that black high schooler, how does that young black coach in his 30s um, deal with racism? Because a lot of people would just say, "Oh, go to another school," but he, it could be a scenario where that young black coach just moved in that town, and um, he has to feed his family, so he can just up and quit right now. So, Coach, I'm gonna start with you. Just how would you address, or how would you um some of the racism that's going on? What's the best way to go about it? Like, for example, just you have any stories of uh you at a school and the head coach racist, or um just the principal may be racist? How would you go about how would you deal with that?
Well,
Or
I
how
mean,
did you deal with that?
well, I'm gonna be truthful, bro. There's one thing I learned in undergrad. Well, I take that back. It was the grad school class. So, we was discussing like, political issues, this, that, and the third. And at one point, two of my coaching friends was like, he was like, if I ever came up for a job or whatever, and I feel like I'm the best candidate, I'm just let the politicians deal with the politics, and I'm gonna coach football. And me and my other coach friend was like, bro, that's not real life. That's not realistic. Because even if you got a team and everybody the same race, everybody the same religion, everybody saying whatever, there's gonna be some level of politics because you're dealing with people. Anytime you're dealing with people and political processes, you're gonna deal with politics. And in one of these college, like as a grad student, they told us the same thing. Like, you have to deal with politics no matter where you go. Because I remember the high school I went to, Assumption High. If people don't know, Brandon Jacobs went was like a freshman my senior year. Jamal Williams, they were in the same class. The two of them graduated with my sister. So, anybody that knows anything but Assumption, there were one point on Friday nights if you go to the game, it's not like Donaldsonville High School or Thibodeau High School, some of like surrounding area schools, St. James, where you have seats on both sides of the stadium. We don't have two smaller sides of the stadium. We just have one big side. And they did a news special like years ago when the New Orleans news stations came into Portlandville, and you could look in the stands and you could see all the blacks. I mean, this is in the 90s now, where all the blacks sitting in one section and all whites sitting in another section. And then they might have a intermixing of a section. But for the most part, you know, if you look on the field and you look at the bench, like yeah, the blacks are intermingling, but in the stands, you got all the whites in one area, all the blacks in one area, and even if you take it a step further, this was in like '98, but we had separate proms. You have a prom for the black kids, you have a prom for the white kids. You know what I'm saying? Of course, homecoming court, is all one thing. But even with that being said, the team captains for like my sophomore and junior year, the black team captains pull all the black players aside and say, hey, we gonna push all our votes toward this one girl so we can have a black homecoming queen. Because we know the white guys, they're gonna vote for all these different girls. And sure enough, homecoming court comes out, the ballot, they announce the homecoming queen. My sophomore and my junior year, they were both black. But rolling around the senior year, white guys that kind of got kicked to the game, and they did the same thing we did. And of course, the black team, the black players on the team was unified because we didn't have the same type of leadership. And of course, it's spinning forward to when I actually got to coaching in the same school district. When I start coaching, like I'm a black coach at an all-white school. In the same high school I went to, that was like the first time they had like a black head coach, probably ever. And the crazy thing about it was, I was at this middle school, and he was at the high school. And I think in the first time of the like parents' history that I was the black coach at this all-white school, and he happened to be the black coach at the high school. That's the first time that those two things happened simultaneously. And of course, when I was at Assumption, the guy that was the head coach, he was a white coach. Like he had 5 losing seasons. When I say 5 losing seasons, I'm not talking about where he won like 3 games, 4 games. I'm talking about like no 1 game a year, 2 games a year. And they gave him 5. He's well, this black guy. They only gave him like I think 2, maybe 3 seasons max, and they fired him. So white coaches,
Yeah.
whether it's high school, whether it's college, whether it's the NFL, they get a lot more leniency and a lot more grace in terms of you get a longer time to turn this program around. Whereas if you're a black coach, they expect instant results. Because I remember, I can't remember the guy's name. They did a special on HBO where they had this black head coach. He a doctor. He was the head coach of San Jose State, and he said he knew as a black coach, he was only gonna get one shot, one kill. If he didn't make it happen on this one try as a black head coach, he wasn't gonna get another shot. Whereas You know, you and I was talking this last week, bro. Like I've seen white coaches, they could be terrible at this job, then they get another job, and then they get another job. So it's double standards. I mean, you have to deal with racism and politics, no matter where you go, whether it's sports, whether it's an education standpoint. Because as a teacher, I see it all the time. I mean, it's not as prevalent for me now. It's because I mean,
Hmm.
back in black school, but whether it's education, whether it's sports, you have to deal with politics and racism. It's just part of the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I definitely feel you on like the long tenures for these losing coaches that just happen to be Caucasian. So yeah. Matter of fact, my high school coach, Coach 67, my high school coach, Stephen J. Pierce. I think he has coached for nearly 30 years. He's probably made 12 to maybe 15 playoff appearances, but most of them were like one and outs. The coach that we had before that who was black, he was his name was Osel Miller. He was there for probably about maybe 8 years. He had winning seasons. We had a deep playoff run my freshman year in high school. And I think my junior no, the end of my junior year towards my senior year, Coach Miller left and then Coach Pierce was in charge, and Coach Pierce had consecutive losing seasons. Like it was bad. Like we went 3-7. We went 3-7 with him. And there was a team at one point that was like 2-8. And he's still going to the UIL coaching meetings and all of that, man. My brother, my little brother, who's into coaching now, had a chuckle at him just kind of sitting by himself over there in one of them UIL meetings. So yeah, it's definitely prevalent, man. I don't know what he doing to stay there, but he's been there for at least I'm saying the last at least 25 years.
Y'all at least beating Sunset and Molina schools like that, right?
Uh, yeah, most of the time, yeah, we was beating Sunset and Molina, but I mean that was a highlight of our season. Them, and then Adamson,
Adamson
was also a
and
bad school, but
and
yeah,
Conrad and all them, yeah.
yeah,
And bro, it's crazy because I promise you, for him to be there that long and be that bad, either he's in good with someone, or he knows someone, or whatever the case may be. Because even in getting these jobs, I remember at one point, I mean, I knew middle school was my lane because at one point when I wasn't working, I applied for like 105 like high school head coaching jobs, and all I got was like three interviews, and I didn't
mm,
get none of those jobs. So I knew like, hey, middle school my lane. But even with that being said, a lot of these coaches they get jobs because they know people. I mean, whether it's
Good old boy
nepotism,
network.
whether it's networking or nepotism or favoritism or some type of political ties or associates or whatever. And in that particular situation, for him to be that long and to be that bad and that long, he knows somebody or he's in good with someone at the school board or administration in the school or whatever the case may be, because they should have got rid of him a long time ago.
oh, definitely, coach. I honestly, I think that he probably is in good with somebody at the school board. There is no
Oh, you
other
know it.
explanation for that. But yeah, W. Samuel, coach, look it up, man. He he is horrible, man.
Oh, you went to Samuel.
Yes.
Okay, y'all had a couple of good ball clubs,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, the corruption and especially in it's everywhere. Not just in the DFW or Louisiana, um, North Carolina. It's everywhere. Um, my brother just brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago this rate. Me and my brother used to wrestle in high school. We were pretty decent wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
With our high school wrestling coach, um, freshman year, he was a racist joker from Virginia.
Mm.
He was very abusive. He would try stuff with me and my brother, but we kind of let him know you can't do that to us. So all he did was talk stuff, which we had thick skin.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, he was fired because he put his hand. Listen, he put his hands on one of the white football players,
Yep. That'll do it.
That double standard.
That'll do it.
and he was reported many a times being a little bit too rough with the other students or
Mm-hmm.
other races or whatever.
Yeah.
How about we find out that MF, and excuse my language, coach, that MF is a principal somewhere in Virginia.
No, I'm telling you, bro, you'll be surprised. Like even here in Baton Rouge, you'll be surprised how many people like get in trouble in this school district or this area, and they leave and they go somewhere else and they get a job somewhere else. Especially when you know people and you have strong network and you have strong political ties. It's easy to pick up and move and go somewhere else. You know.
And then and yes, and what irritates me and why things don't get better is, like you said, there's no leadership amongst the black players or the black staff, whatever um, scenario it is or situation it is.
Mm-hmm.
They'll either, because I can remember the black players laughing at the situation because they were too ignorant to understand what's going on. I can remember some of the black coaches and uh some of the black coaches and teachers not saying anything because they didn't know what was going on.
I mean, it's crazy, bro, because you know those type of things happen all the time. It's a crazy double standard. And the thing that just blew my mind, like recently, I saw this story where this black football team in California, like a small percentage of the student population is black, like maybe 3% or something like real minuscule. The team had a mock, like a mock slave trade where they was auctioning off the
I
black
saw that.
players and
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
And bro, I'm like, man, like in 2022, it's a black player. I don't care if it just had two or three of us on this team. There's no way we would have stood for that, bro.
No,
Mm-mm.
No way, bro. I'm like, bro, you serious? Like, come on, man.
Nah. Mm-mm.
so you think the so this what how I feel. I feel like the when the more that the years go by and we're not educating, especially the younger generation, on the ins and out of mainly our history, but just what is racism and how to approach it, and if this person says that to you, that's not cool. Don't be smiling and everything. That was not a compliment. If we're not passing down those um things to our children, then it's gonna get worse because nobody has the discernment to say anything and stand up.
And and the thing, what it is, bro, you know, like my mom says all the time, like the world is getting wiser and weaker. And like
Yeah,
some of the like, just basic things that we knew coming up, you know, especially when you have a dad in the home, you know, we would talk certain things because, you know, I remember I was looking at 7 8 Sports TV like maybe a couple months ago. You know, shout out to 7 8. But he was talking about
shouts
how
out to the general.
yeah, he was talking about how Shakur, he was basically saying that he think uh Tyson Fury could beat Muhammad Ali. And like he was saying, even if I thought it, the way we were taught, like, you know, you don't like certain people in the black community are untouchable. You know, Muhammad Ali from a boxing standpoint is one of them. You know what I'm saying? And of course, I don't think like Tyson Fury could beat him anyway. You know, if you put him, both in their prime. But even with that being said, even though I didn't think that, I wouldn't have the audacity to say that. And then you had the situation with the girl name is B. Simone, where she talked about Dr. Martin Luther King. And it's like this younger generation, they don't have to understand that we got like our leaders, you gotta have a certain amount of reverence for them where they off limit in terms of talking about them, whatever the case may be. And I don't know if it's the fact that they're not trained, they're not taught these things, but certain things we were taught, and we were taught like, hey, we couldn't, even as a kid. I remember I was in high school. There's some white people around, and me and one of my people that was from my neighborhood. We were saying the N word. He was like, hey son, you don't get in front of them people and talk like that. So it's certain things like this newer generation of kids, they aren't taught, and they don't have the understanding like we did, years ago.
Yeah, I can go ahead, Brent.
No, you got to go ahead.
I can honestly say that's my generation fault. We kind of started that. Well, yeah, we kind of um just thought that was okay, and now that I'm older, I'm realizing that's not okay. Cause now, once you get somebody who's not white, excuse me, not black, who says the N word or whatever the case may be, and you don't like it, well, heck, you've been saying it to each other and around them, whatever. So they think it's okay, and it's not. You still check them, but still, it's yeah,
Yeah,
it's Go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I agree, bro. Like I see with the score situation. I mean, somebody should have told him like when he's boxing OGs, like, man, hey, bro, you don't see nothing, no crap like that. And I think it's just the younger generation. And I really can't put it on y'all. I just think it's being taught. You know what I'm saying? Somebody got to train you up because, like I said, even the players that I'm coaching nowadays, there's no way they could have played for my coach because they don't have that level of respect. They don't listen. They're disrespectful. Curse coaches out. I mean, the last game I coached, when the players cursed me out, this, that, and the third, I'm like, bro, there's no way you could have played for my middle school coach. He literally probably would have choked you, slapped you up, whatever. And what you gonna do? You gonna tell him because either he was friends and he went to school with your grandparents or your parents, one of the two. So what you gonna do? Tell him? So I'm like, bro, y'all couldn't have played in a different generation, but it's a level of respect. I think it's just as times go on, like my mom says, like the world is just getting wiser in terms of the amount of access and resources they have, but it's getting weaker in terms of character and respect.
You hit the nail right on the head, coach,
We
because that
did.
that was the point that I was just about to make. Yes, these kids, now that they have more access to things, they can be more aware, of course, but at the same time, there's not reverence for what they're actually picking up because it's so easy now. Um, and I don't want to sound like one of these back in my day type people, but I'm gonna do it.
Go
Um,
ahead.
it's a situation of where if you really wanted to find something out, you had to do the legwork to find it out. Now you can find out whatever you want to find out with a click of a button, and then there's just no respect for the process.
Mm.
Um, you would respect the process on how you obtain that knowledge, when things weren't so accessible, when people often close doors on you or just tell you not to talk about that, or excuse me, or just flat out or just flat out refuse to let you know anything. So yeah, there's not enough reverence for what you actually picked up knowledge wise. You just think that, okay, I just took it in and now I'm gonna just use it to my benefit and throw it in the trash.
Bro, you hit the nail on the head. I was telling what you just said. I told
Mm.
that to some of my students early on today, literally this morning. I was telling them the exact same thing you said. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they well. This generation is the best way to learn. If you don't go listen, is to go through it.
Yeah,
Yep.
Unfortunately,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
and one thing I noticed is not giving a damn is popular towards our people too. Um, And that's why if you don't care, that's why um, racism is fluctuating and succeeding the long way the long time it has, because a lot of us act like we just don't care.
Yeah, that's true also, but racism is learned at home, to be honest. Like
Yeah,
you pick that up from somebody. Like your racist ass granddaddy had said something, or your racist ass daddy, or your racist ass uncle, or hell, even your racist ass mama, your racist ass auntie. Excuse my language. But yeah, you picked that up from somewhere. That is reinforced at home. Like if it were a situation to where like that other knowledge, like it was accessible, you just throw that out. But
you're
that's
you're
learned at
absolutely
home.
you're absolutely right. I was making reference of our people not giving a damn as far as learning why what we are against, because we a lot of it's a shit our ancestors knew. We really don't know how evil a lot of these people are that don't like blacks. We
Mm-hmm.
don't, and a lot of us don't care until it happens to them, I should say.
Exactly. Um, but yeah, the racism that's practiced now is more systemic than it is just actually brutal and violent like back then.
Yeah,
Just
Yeah.
to kind of give you guys a backstory, my father is from Oxford, Mississippi. Of course, that's the home of Ole Miss, and they
yeah,
were the rebels back then. I don't know what they call themselves now,
they
but
still the rebels.
They're still a rebels.
okay, yeah, they used to have Colonel Sanders on the side of their helmet, coach.
Yeah,
They
hey.
was, and the first thing that I remember about Oxford, y'all, was so many Confederate flags just hanging in the little town square that they got up there. It was so many of them just draping down. It looked like Christmas tree decorations, and we was in the middle of July. It was no lie. I'm telling you, everywhere you looked, there was some Confederate flags hanging down. And so much so that I asked my dad what that was, and he told me that son, those are Confederate flags, and the people that hang them don't like you. So that's how I was actually introduced to racism, probably about like 4.
Bro, that's crazy because guess
Mm.
what? I'm from South Louisiana, and
Mm-hmm.
there's this school in Thibodeau called Nicholls State University. Their mascot is the Colonel.
Oh,
Their mascot is the Colonels. And guess
uh-huh.
it's the
Yep,
rebels
sure
and
is.
Colonels. Hey, it's one and the same. And
Mm-hmm.
even here in Louisiana, like that first school I told you, telling you I was coached at, hey, in some of those areas, excuse me, in some of those areas, hey, you'll see a Confederate flag here and there too now. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, hey, even when I go home to see my mom on weekends, there's this one house that's maybe a few miles from our house. Guess what? Hey, Confederate flag hanging in the yard. The crazy thing about it, my sister lives in like this real nice, affluent neighborhood in Prairieville, Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
and the neighbor like diagonally across the street from her. The guy moved out, but he had a Confederate flag in his yard also. It's crazy.
Mm.
And the first thing they will say, um it's not hate, it's their culture, but that flag represents a lot of hate.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old Democratic battle flag.
Exactly. They would hang us and hang that flag at the same time.
Yep.
Like there are actual pictures of that. There are actual pictures of that. And people taking their kids. And I'm sorry. I'm trying not to get off subject, but I just have these visuals, man.
Go ahead, man.
Where I mean, this was a casual thing. You talk about a group of folks that just devalue human life. These people take their kids to see this sick stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it is mind boggling. And then you go to church on Sunday like nothing happened.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
and they're supposed to be the biggest Christians, you know.
yeah.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and
And
the crazy thing about it is, you know, I mean, you have all these like racist individuals, and it's just crazy how some of them just overt, where they kind of closet racist, and then some of them, I mean, covert, and they just closet racist, and some of them just overt, just like right in your face with it. You know what I'm saying? With the Confederate flags and all this other stuff, and it's like man, like y'all just bold, huh? But I mean, I prefer the overt as opposed to the covert. You know?
Hmm.
I don't prefer neither one, but I understand what you're saying, Coach.
I know what you stand. You know?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And just imagine, like, if you have a son or daughter that's in sports, and he's especially in the South, and your son wants to play football, your daughter wants to play volleyball, what the case may be.
Hmm.
9 times out of 10, unless you're rich and goes to a private school, and that may, hey, a lot of people say that may be even worse. But anyway,
Oh no, no, hey, they are worse because my mom taught at this private school, and like she always would be like one of like maybe three or four black teachers at the whole school, and of course, her and this white lady was across the hall teaching in the same grade level. They put all the worst kids in my mom's class because they knew she had better classroom management skills than she could deal with them, especially if they were black kids. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
So it was just a ridiculous double standard. And I mean, even when it come to like like mascots like the Colonels and the Rebels, there's this high school in here in Baton Rouge where it's like they excel in academics and in sports. The name of was Robert E. Lee High School. Just recently they changed it to
Mm.
Liberty High like a couple years back, you know. So I mean, even like that amount of racism for you to name this your high school after this Confederate, general colonel, whatever he was, it's like, bro, the level of racism is unreal, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, there was a lot of, I mean, I remember high school in North Carolina where they no longer have that mascot, but they were also the Rebels.
Yeah.
They changed it to Vikings now,
Hmm.
but they used to be a rebel. So it's very, so just because they changed the mascot or the meaning doesn't mean that feeling is not there in
Oh
those
yeah,
people.
yeah. It is. It
So
is.
when our kids are at these schools, it's very important. It's detriment to them that they know what racism is and how to handle it, especially if they go to. Uh, did y'all see that video about they was a Duke black female Duke player? She was volleyball. Uh, she was by the stands, and one racist one of the uh, males people in the stands, white guy of course, was saying racial slurs. But it was like I think it was somewhere like with a whole bunch of white, well, Wisconsin or something like that up
Mm.
there.
No, I didn't see that, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Midwest has real bad racism too.
yeah. They
Um,
say Chicago to this day is the most in the Midwest, the most segregated city.
I
I could
believe
believe.
that.
I could believe that.
I definitely believe that because yeah, I have actual blood relatives up there.
Thank you, Jay Good. He said it was BYU. Um,
Okay.
and that explained it. The Mormons think we curse, but that explains a lot. And Jay Good also said there's quite a few people opposing the name changing of those schools. Yeah, there is. Um, you remember on Friday Night Light, Brent, where you remember that school, Midland Lee?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think they changed. I think they either planning to or they already changed. I have to look it up. But man, a lot of people, them people were upset about that.
And you know how racism is so prevalent down here that you could go to Stonewall Jackson Elementary School, Robert
Hmm.
E. Lee High School, stuff like that, and it's just unfortunately a normal thing.
I mean,
Yeah. Okay. They
I just
did.
want to know.
Okay.
I just want to know how many schools in the South. Just like I was telling you with the one here in Baton Rouge. How many high schools are there in Robert E. Lee High School?
There was a lot, man. I
It's
did my. There was
crazy.
a lot. There was many in North Carolina, South Carolina, and
Mm.
there. How many high schools back in them days named the lady mascot were rebels?
Hey, I mean, you still got them.
Countless. Hey, I was thinking, what is South Garland's the South Garland used to have a mascot. They was either a colonel or something else. But
South Garland was we played South Garland too.
yeah, South Garland was like a colonel or somebody. Jay Good, if you got the answer to that one, please put in the chat.
they the Titans now. But hey, Woodrow Wilson High School, even
They,
though Woodrow Wilson was very racist.
he sure was. He sure was. And when we played them, when you're a kid, you don't think nothing about that. But yeah, Woodrow Wilson, yeah,
How can I forget Tyler Lee?
yeah, Tyler Lee, yeah.
Tyler Lee. Them Tyler Lee Lions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man. And it's everywhere. And our children, not even our children, grown men, um, young coaches, or not even young, could be just a coach trying to, do what they love, and they have to go somewhere. I know, I know a guy. Uh, he he's my homeboy. I graduated with him in North Carolina, and he's coaching here in Texas, but he's coaching where there's a lot of Hispanics, and I forget the name of the university. And he said he deals with a lot of racism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I am not surprised by that at all. Because unfortunately, our Hispanic, particularly Mexican in this area,
Yeah.
brothers and sisters are given the impression that black people, the jobs that they actually pick up, like having to do landscaping and cleaning buildings and stuff like that, they're given the impression that we black people don't want to do those jobs and are afraid of hard work. And that if they actually had an opportunity to do better, then they would take advantage of it better than us. Not knowing what black people have actually been
The
through and not asking black people
redlining
what they've
and
been through.
generations of wealth was taken from us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, not knowing the full story, they go in and have these impressions of us, and purposely speak Spanish when we try to interact with them and stuff like that, because they think that you know if someone sees them, if the right person actually sees them apply themselves, then they advance further in life than us. That's just basically what it boiled down to.
Yeah, they don't understand the stereotypes behind a lot of issues we have to go through as black people here, you know.
They
A
do
lot of
not.
them don't want to understand on the cool.
They do not. And let me do my disclaimer, because I got to do this all the time when it's quote unquote controversial.
Go ahead.
I still have love for all my Hispanic brothers and sisters, okay, and those who have a good understanding and are
Yes.
humane. We appreciate y'all. We are just
Yes.
addressing the people who are willfully ignorant. Let me put it that way: willfully
Yeah.
ignorant, and just do not want to contribute. All right, y'all.
And same for white people. White people. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
um. That disclaimer is much needed because sometimes, hit dog will holler.
Sure
Yeah.
will.
A lot of times, actually. So, I just feel it's my opinion and my experience, just sitting back watching, experiencing myself as well. A lot of us do not understand what we understand our history, and what other people went through. But a lot of us younger generation don't understand it until we actually go through it. Y'all understand what I'm saying?
I definitely
Yeah.
do.
I
Yes.
understand what you're saying, bro.
We know about what the slaves and Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, Booker T. Washington, all them. But yeah, and they're like, yeah, yeah, and then they want to, kumbaya, hold hands. But as
Mm-hmm.
soon as they go through what their ancestors went through, oh snap, this person don't like me because I'm black. This is what Big Mama was talking about, or Pop was talking about. But unfortunately, a lot of them find out. When they do find out, they lose their lives.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think we probably, and this is just for my generation. I'm an '80s baby.
Me too.
We sometimes have to accept responsibility for that because we grew up like on the tail end of racism. I mean, there was direct racism given towards us when we were small children and all of that.
Hmm.
And it kind of subsided and it got swept under the rug. And then you kind of have situations to where they do more systematic things to kind of to kind of get you pushed off to the side or whatever. So it's not as just out there as somebody just yelling nigga to your face. Um, but we want a better life for our kids. So, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they do have a better life. And in doing that, sometimes there are times where we just don't, and I'm only speaking for what I'm seeing. Um, we just don't equip them to deal with that because we feel like, hey, we made a better life for them. That shouldn't apply. But unfortunately, it's like I tell my nieces and nephews all the time. You gotta be strong to wear these colors. Like
Mm,
you
I
gonna
like
go
that.
through it. There are gonna be days where you go through it. People are going to judge you. People are going to mistreat you. People are just gonna be flat out ignorant to you because of what you actually look like. And you have to be strong enough to stand in there and not be ashamed of yourself and shrivel up like they want you to, and vehemently defend yourself.
Beautifully said, Brent. And that's basically what my point is, as far as um those kids that go to these white universities to play ball, mainly football, who a football show, but it could be any sport. But
Hmm.
that new young coach or whatever, in a majority white environment or school, like what Brent said, they have to know who you are and be strong. You got to be strong to wear these colors. Because most of Western society was trained that you are the enemy, and you have done nothing to these people. They
Exactly.
gonna because uh um Ray and Pookie was on the news for shooting up a store or robbing or even killing a little white lady. They're gonna look at you in a different way, like you're them, even though they're just being honest with you, even though
Hmm.
their history is full of barbarianism and 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 death to black people. So that what people that's what they the society does.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
absolutely.
in fact, we talked about that last week. When we
Hmm.
talked about the Prairie View and Southern thing, it's like, I was telling you that then. If a black person does something, they kind of lump us all in together. Whereas
Yeah.
if an individual white person does something, is that person just individually staying alone? You know what I'm saying? So,
Hmm.
you know, it's definitely a double standard when it comes to that.
Yeah, absolutely. See that Batman movie shooting, and also what was Dillian Roof who shot up that black church and killed all them innocent people. Like, oh
Innocent
no,
black
that's
folk.
not
Yeah.
us. That's them. That's them.
And that's why the OJ verdict was so. And that was what 92,
94.
94.
94.
I was in Assumption. I remember that day. So yeah, they were throwing oranges in the gym at Assumption High. So yeah, I remember
Mm.
that.
So that's why that stuff like that is so. A lot of people's gonna remember that because it's funny. Like people say, that exposed a lot of white people. Oh, I'm not racist. I'm not. But how they were so into that trial and want that black man to be
Hmm.
punished because he um uh
You took out one of theirs.
took out one of theirs. Uh, uh
I'm sorry, two of theirs, because Ronald Goldman daddy still
Over.
mad.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
he
Yep.
ready to, he's still
But
ready to sue.
it's crazy how the system that they've been using to get off all them years, it came back to bite them in the behind in that particular
Hmm.
instance, and they were upset about it. And the crazy thing about it, every time I tell a story, but when I was like a freshman in Assumption and the verdict came on, they just assumed it was the white kids. They just assumed it was the white kids throwing oranges at Assumption. No, it was the black kids throwing oranges at Assumption.
What? Oh, coach, you cut out.
yeah, you cut out, man. It was getting good.
Yeah, man, got to the good part and cut out, man.
Hey,
Come on back.
no, no, hey, it's crazy because every time I say that, every time I tell that story, people under the impression that it was the white kids throwing the oranges in the gym, from the box play lunches, like it's them
Hmm.
being upset. No, it was the black kids throwing oranges in terms of like celebration, and they were just going crazy. And I'm like, bro, like he got off. Like, why y'all throwing them? But I guess it was like their form of celebration. And of course, the next morning for morning announcement, they had to say, hey, if we throwing food in the gym and this, that, and the third, y'all not gonna be able to get box play lunches no more. Everybody's gonna have to go inside the cafeteria and sit down and eat. Y'all not gonna be able to use the gym
Ah,
for privilege and blah blah blah. I'm like, bro, hey.
Dang.
So yeah, so it wasn't the white kids, it was the black kids throwing oranges from the plates.
mm, that is funny.
That's hilarious.
That is
Um,
funny.
yeah, but I just I just feel like a lot of us we have an idea what racism is and what our ancestors went through, especially my generation, but we have no clue until we go through it. And like Brent said, you wearing these colors, which are skin, or melanated skin, you have to be strong. You have to be
Yeah.
strong
Like
and
Sin used to tell me,
educated.
like Sin used to tell me all the time. He'd say, son, you gotta be able to fly to get to where they can walk to.
Mm,
They say you gotta be 10
yeah,
times better.
that would touch my spirit,
He used to
coach,
tell me all the
because
time.
because my mother and my grandmother used to give me them words too, man. That one touched my soul. Yes, sir. You gotta
Yes, it
fly to where
did.
they walk.
Yeah.
Gotta fly where they walk, but a lot of people are gonna judge you. A lot of people are going to um just not trying to get to know you, but that's what a lot of our ancestors went through since this country. Um, America was created, and what it correlates to sports is basically, and going back to Lamar Jackson, I feel like he's doing something so a lot of people don't understand what he's doing, but I think it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so brilliant, and it and me being a Baltimore Raven fan, it makes me Steve Bisciotti, which is our own. And if he does not try to make a deal, at least get close to what Lamar wants, basically he's saying, man, we ain't paying that nigga nothing.
Mm.
Basically, that's
Well,
what
I'm
it
gonna be
is.
truthful, but a lot of GMs and owners are mad at the Browns for giving Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract because they knew once that next top franchise quarterback comes up, he's gonna want the same thing. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's gonna be
Mm.
CBA because all those other owners they mad with the Browns for giving him that contract. So Deshaun Watson, he be like, hey, I'm worth more than him, which he is. Hey, I want my contract fully guaranteed too. So at some point, that's going to be an issue when it comes to the collective bargaining agreement.
Yes, sir.
Man, it's gonna be interesting uh in these couple of months to see how that's gonna go. But we're gonna end the show on that note. Um, Brent, thank you for coming by. Uh, Coach, thank you for, as usual, for blessing us with your football knowledge. Um, Brent, tell everybody how they can reach you, who you are.
I'm Brent Fox. I don't have anything set up quite yet. I was just blessed to be in a position to talk to you all tonight. Once I get things going on my end, maybe internet wise, I'll probably have something for you then. But it's just a blessing to be here, man. And Coach and Jared O. 11 Green, I really enjoyed you, brothers. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate y'all.
We appreciate for having you. You definitely a pleasure to have you on, brother. Coach 67 Sports TV, brother. What your last words?
All right, first and foremost, you can catch me, Coach 67 Sports TV here on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, on Twitter, on all social media platforms. And in closing, I mean, we appreciate you, Brent Fox, for having you on, bro. Great conversation. And salute to the
Very
amazing
good.
LBG Lionsgate
Thank y'all
Boxing
again.
Community.
Salute
No,
to the LDBC family, man.
yeah.
Love all
Shout
y'all.
out, love all y'all. Shout out to the mighty LDBC. Y'all be safe out here. Y'all be blessed. Y'all have a blessed night. Love y'all, brothers. Good
All
night.
right.
Peace and